everybody, thanks for checking out another episode of Gamer Logic. I'm Mike Murtis, and today we're going to talk about one of my favorite import games available on the PlayStation, and an enhanced version of it that is actually available on the Sega Saturn. The game is Nightstriker, which actually got a 1989 arcade release, and was released by Taito. I don't believe it was officially released in America. If it was very far between a large-scale amount of units. And to kind of tell you my history about playing Nightstriker is back in 1989, 1990, my dad would take us to the arcades every other Wednesday, and we were walking through the arcade, and in this arcade was this huge sit-down model of Nightstriker. So literally you walked into the arcade cabinet, you sat in the cockpit, you had the joystick, and you had these speakers behind you, you had these cool neon lights all around you, and you were just in the game. The game has great music, the game had great graphics for back then, and in my opinion they still hold up very well. And there was just something about the game that was magical. Here you were flying through this neon nightscape, and kind of almost like a Knight Rider theme is going through this entire game, except you can fly, your car or ship or your Nightstriker unit can actually go on water, it can drive on ground, you can do pretty much anything. And it was just quite amazing. You're flying through with this big joystick and you're blowing up things, and the sound was just so fantastic that you were just really drawn into the game. You felt every hit because of the way the speakers sounded. You had a computer voice telling you that your shields were in danger and you were about to lose them and you were probably about to die. There's just something very magical about the game to me, and probably one of the reasons I really enjoyed Star Fox when it eventually came out on the Super Nintendo back in 1993. So, what happens with this great game? Obviously that arcade closed, machines go in and out of an arcade, and years later I forgot about this thing until one day, for some reason, after playing Afterburner, which admittedly you could say this is an Afterburner clone, suddenly I remembered the game, and I couldn't remember what it was, so I started looking through things, I started looking at Afterburner clones, and after a while I found it. Now the interesting thing was, this was never released on any American console officially. It was only released in Japan or other Asian territories, and it's been released on a couple different systems. Its first release was on the Sega CD or Mega CD. I did get a hold of a bootleg copy of it, and I do have to say that if you're interested in trying this game, stay away from the Sega CD version, because while you can do the Sega Superscaler technology on the Sega CD, the diminishment of colors is so bad on the game that it just looks like you're flying through this mucky, gritty crappiness that does not look like the arcade version of Nightstriker. It's very poor. While it does have the music, the experience is just lowered so much by the quality of the graphics, or the diminishing of the graphics. It's very disappointing. So if you want to try out Nightstriker, do not try the Sega CD, Mega CD version. It's just not worth it, not worth spending the money. Eventually, in 1995, a group called Bing licensed the game from Taito, and they released it for the PlayStation. And I will say that this is pretty much an excellent port of the original arcade game. There is some loading involved with it when you're going between the actual tunnels to pick your stage, but that's pretty minimal. The interruption is very minimal. The game itself retains all the sounds. It has the soundtrack, which is phenomenal, and it's great. And when I saw this at the Midwest Gaming Classic this year for $5, I had to grab it, because again, this was another one that I had a bootleg copy of. Now, in 1996, Bing actually released a version of this called Nightstriker S, which actually was an even better enhanced port version of the arcade version and this. Nightstriker S had an enhanced mode where it had arranged stages, exclusive stages, you could listen to the soundtrack. It just had a lot of extra bonus features like CG videos and stuff like that this version didn't have. And if I had to pick any of them, I would probably say the Saturn version is the best version, but for the fact that I found this for the PlayStation for so cheap, it still retains all the original arcade awesomeness, and I highly recommend this one, though if you can find it on the Saturn, I'd say pick that one up as well. It's a fantastic game. The plot is very simple. Terrorists are attacking. A scientist has been kidnapped as well as his daughter, and you're going after either the terrorist or you're going after the doctor to try to rescue him. And you go through all these different stages and cityscapes and tunnels, and you blow up random enemies on the ground, in the air. It's great. After you fight the boss, you go through a pass-through tunnel, and you have the option of going either to the left or right, and each stage is different. The concept is very, very simple, and in my opinion, it may seem a little bit boring to people who are just playing it for the first time today. Back in 1989, playing this in the arcade was a freaking blast, and this is a really great way to revisit my past, and I really enjoyed this game. I would give this a 4 out of 5 just for the fact that the loading times do ruin the experience a little bit. Not completely, but that would be my only gripe about this game. Otherwise, it is pretty much a perfect arcade port. I would give the Saturn version a 5 out of 5 because it, even though it has loading time, it far and between blows away everything else with the extra features and the CG cutscenes it puts in it. So overall, a great game. Highly recommend you check it out. Do you need an import PlayStation or you need to emulate it? Though I highly recommend you either get a joystick or a gamepad because it just plays really weird on a standard arcade stick. I'm Mike Murtis with Gamer Logic. Until next time, guys, peace. Gamer Logic.